Well, one of the things that drove me crazy during the trucker convoy was a statement by Justin Trudeau and everyone on the authoritarian side of the ledger that the convoy was somehow illegal. They used the phrase occupation, which I suppose is not a legal definition really, but they called it an illegal gathering, an illegal protest, but it never was. You don't get to just deem something illegal because you don't like it. And even the Emergencies Act did not deem public protest illegal. Quite the contrary. The Emergencies Act contains provisions to protect civil liberties, believe it or not. The trucker convoy was never, and could not be illegal. I suppose if it turned into a riot, it could be declared a riot, but that never happened. In fact, the opposite was the case. The invocation of the Emergencies Act, that in itself was found by the federal court to have been illegal and in fact unconstitutional. So how is it that a police officer who quietly, discreetly online donated $50 to the Give, Send, Go campaign to support the truckers, how is it that he could be disciplined by the police board? How is that a thing? Do we now discipline people for having incorrect politics? Is a police officer not allowed to have a private donation? And that donation, by the way, was only found out about because of a criminal act, the hacking of the crowdfunding service called Give, Send, Go. If you follow the case of Constable Michael Briscoe, the cop who chipped in $50, you'll find that, in fact, he was convicted by the police investigation based on media reports. It's an outrage, and it's a sign of the politicization of our police. Let me say that again. Constable Briscoe's private and quiet donation to a lawful crowdfund was not the politicization of police at all. He didn't do so in his work. He didn't do so with his badge or his uniform, but rather the police investigating him, hounding him, and punishing him. That is the politicization of police. Well, I can tell you that on Wednesday, 2 days ago, his conviction was the subject of a judicial review. That's a fancy way of saying a sort of legal appeal where judges looked at the work of the police investigation. I'm delighted to say that Constable Briscoe was represented by the lawyers at the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, the JCCF. And James Manson of the JCCF joins us now via Skype from Toronto. James, great to see you again.
Thanks, Ezra. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Did I accurately summarize the case? Basically, here's a cop who in his private capacity on his personal time chipped in $50 to a completely legal cause. He didn't do it while wearing a badge or a uniform or a gun. He just, in his private life, chipped in $50. And the convoy itself was never illegal, was never declared illegal by any police under the Riot Act or by any judge. Am I correct in that fact as well?
Ezra, as per usual, you've hit the nail on the head. This is exactly what happened to Constable Briscoe. The only thing that I would add to your correct statement of the facts is that he was, at the time he made the donation, he was on in kind of like a leave of absence. Why was that? Because he had a problem with the mandatory vaccination policy of the Windsor Police Service. That's another issue, of course, that we maybe don't want to get into right now today, but that was why he was at home. And ultimately, as you say, he decided one evening to donate $50 to the Give, Send, Go website. And then, naturally, all hell broke loose.
Well, I think that adds to his strength. So he wasn't even working. He was on leave then. It was not a vacation per se, but I think that would even add more strength to it. So he was convicted in the first instance, and now he just had his judicial review at the Ontario Divisional Court. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Is there really a difference between a judicial review and an appeal? One is just really reviewing what the expert panel of the Ontario police commission, basically. What's the name of it? The sort of police, the Ontario Civilian Police Commission. They made a decision, and then this court was reviewing their decision. So it's sort of like an appeal, right?
That's correct, Ezra. Just let me give the viewers just a very quick overview here. So what happened in the very beginning? You had the investigation. There was an investigating officer, and she was the one who downloaded those 25 or 30 newspaper articles. Now, in legal terms, Ezra, as you know, we call that hearsay.
Yeah.
We call that something that is not really something that you should rely on for the truth of what is in the newspaper report.
Right.
It could be false.
Right.
Somebody could be lying. You don't know.
Right.
And so ultimately, on the basis of all that information, and in that information, it wasn't, by the way, videos and photographs of buildings on fire and people murdering everybody in the streets, right? Mm-hmm. It was literally Justin Trudeau and Doug Ford and Chief of Police Slowly, as we remember him from Ottawa, these people saying things like, this protest is becoming illegal. This is an unlawful gathering, whatever. Mm-hmm. They have no authority to make those types of declarations. And you know why, Ezra? Because we don't live in Iran. Yeah. There's no Ayatollah here that can just declare things to be illegal and then have consequences visited upon our citizens. In this case, right. It was 2 weeks of penalty for Constable Briscoe. Some other person may suffer a different consequence in a similar vein. It's very dangerous. Anyway, Ezra, the investigator did her thing. You know what? Here's the thing, the scandalous thing as well. The data that came from the breach, the hacking incident, the police recognized in the beginning that there were holes in the data. One of the investigators said to another, it's possible that the illegal hacker that we never investigated, it's possible that they manipulated the data, added information, deleted information to the donor database. We don't know. And anyway, so then the investigating sergeant, she recognized that maybe she couldn't rely on this information if it was just that was all there was. But what she did was she used her powers under the investigative, sections of the act, of the legislation, and she compelled Constable Briscoe to go to an interview. And then she could ask him questions on the record. And because this was a disciplinary proceeding, right, not a criminal matter.
Right.
So the viewers have to understand he wasn't going to go to jail for this, right? So you don't have the same Charter of Rights protections. You don't have the right to remain silent. You have to answer the questions in a disciplinary proceeding. So he had to say, yes, I did make a donation. I mean, the walls came tumbling down. I made a $50 donation. Yeah. So ultimately, that's what got him. And so then we went before a hearing officer. Our organization, Ezra, was not involved at the original hearing. And so one of the things that I was a little bit disappointed was that nobody at the hearing originally decided to argue that this whole thing stunk from the beginning.
Right.
That it was what we call in the legal business an abuse of process.
Right.
When you've got an investigator getting this information, recognizing it's not good, it's got holes in it, using it though to springboard a compelled hearing interview to ask this guy questions that he can't refuse, that stinks. And what it also does, Ezra, it incentivizes this type of behavior, doesn't it? I mean, you've got hackers now looking at what happened, and they're saying, hey, if I want to challenge my enemies, personal, political, who knows what, I can hack in here. Clearly, they're not going to care because they didn't investigate. But maybe what they're going to do is they're going to investigate my enemy and penalize him. What kind of a message does that send to us?
Yeah. I mean, the fact that hacker has not been prosecuted, that hacker was boasting online that he hacked the Give, Send, Go. Like he was bragging about it.
Yeah.
And the timing of it was so clearly choreographed to suit the government's needs. It was published immediately by the CBC state broadcaster, clearly an illegal act. And we need to do a lot more investigating. And I hope that one day, perhaps it'll need there to be a new government in place, that there should be an investigation, perhaps even a hearing into the illegal conduct by the government during the convoy, including this hacking.
You know what I would respond to that, Ezra? I would say, I hear you. I would say it shouldn't matter what the government is in power. It shouldn't matter if it's a liberal government, a conservative government.
I'm just saying there's no way they would investigate themselves. We see that they just simply won't do that.
What I'm saying is that the Charter of Rights and the rule of law should be there no matter what government is going on. But anyway, Ezra, just to get back to your your initial question. So the hearing officer found him guilty and docked him 2 weeks' pay. Boom. Then we took an appeal. There's an appeal into an appeal tribunal. This is not a court, just so the viewers understand. It kind of looks like a court.
Right.
It acts a bit like a court. It's not entirely a court, but they take appeals of these types of decisions. And so we did the appeal. And we argued before the appeal body. It's called the Ontario Civilian Police Commission, the OCPC.
Got it.
And because we've got civilian oversight of the police services, that's the idea, which I think is generally good in theory, right?
Right.
But anyway, what happened was we said, hey, the evidence that you guys trotted out to convict this guy was ridiculous. You can't convict a guy on 25 newspaper articles where nobody who has the authority to make a declaration that a protest is illegal.
Right.
Like that's all they said.
Right.
My point as well, we've got the Charter of Rights here. This guy's got every right to make a donation.
Right.
And, that's a problem.